Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to turn my microphone on. How is everyone?
Good.
It's been a minute. Has it not? I'm delighted to be here today, and as Reverend Karen mentioned, she and I have been conspiring on the side for the right and perfect time. And as it turns out, this is the right and perfect time because we say it's the right and perfect time. It is so because we allow it to be so, right? Now, I confess I'm a little nervous. I'm not sure how long Reverend Karen usually speaks on a Sunday.
As long as you like.
Okay, good. Because I have been accused, that might be too strong a word, of being part Baptist because I can talk. Now, I'm making up for most of my life, well into my adulthood, where I wouldn't talk at all. So I got a lot of words to say. And I have this fear that someone would come up to me after a Sunday service one day and say, that message today was timeless. And I'm like, oh, do you mean I shared spiritual truths that touched your spirit? No, we just didn't know when it was going to end. So let's see. I'm using an iPad now. I know, right? I have paper in my bag, though. I mostly trust technology. The title of my message today is Let God Be God in You. Let me share this to open. The gospel story is remarkable on many levels. It's endured the test of time, and Jesus of Nazareth is by far the best known human that has ever lived, ever. Right? The Bible is the best-selling book. Do you know that? In the world, estimated about 5 billion copies have been sold. I probably have 15 of them. You might too. The Harry Potter series only sold 600 million, not even close. And one of the reasons for this, I believe, is that the gospel story gets right at the core of what it means to be human. Or perhaps what it means to be a spiritual being having a human experience. Right? And it tells us in a profound and memorable way that no matter what is going on, no matter how dire things may seem to be, at any given moment, the best is yet to come. God always has the last word. All we need to do is let God be God in us, and all is well. Right? Simple, but not easy. I have learned along the way this phrase. I don't think it's an affirmation as much as a reminder to me. And it is this. Why I came here is not why I am here. Why you came here is not why you are here. And I have in my notes, and you know me, I've done this before, it says story. So I'm taking a deep breath now, waiting for divine inspiration about what story I might tell. Do you know, does that resonate with you? Why I came here is not why I am here. That might be true about today. I don't know. I'll find out later. I know it's been true about just about every aspect of my life. And the reason I find it important is because it reminds me to stay open to all possibilities. Right? I might have a vision or an idea, and I want to hold that. We talked in the book study about prosperity principles, beginning with holding a vision. But I also don't want to limit my life just to that. That's why we will often close an affirming prayer with the phrase, this or something better. This or something better. Now, there's kind of a corollary to this, almost a downside, if you will. I don't know if you'll see it that way. But this has really hit me hard lately for some reason. You know, we talk about present moment awareness. All of our practices, in a sense, boil down to one thing. It's getting our minds to be right here and right now with us in this moment. Yes, we have to look to the future. Yes, we need to go to the store. We might decide when we're going to do that. But I can return my mind right here, right now. It's very difficult to do. Right? We call present moment awareness. It's kind of a goal that we hold. Well, I realized something about present moment awareness that I find very disconcerting. Follow me here, if you will. When my mind is right here and right now, and only right here and right now, I have no idea what's going to happen next. And I don't really like that. It's frightening. Being in the, I don't know if anyone, no one ever said this to me. I feel like I need to start saying this. Being in the present moment is deeply disconcerting. Is it not? You know, we talk about allowing the Spirit to lead us, about getting in right relation where our thinking mind, of course, is important, but we don't want it to run our lives. We want the Spirit to run our lives. But if you actually do that, you have no idea what's going to happen next. And that's a hard place to be. Only because, I'll talk about only because I am still hanging on to my ideas about how things are. Why do I need to know what's going to happen next? Because I'm having some mistrust or other about what might go on. I still want things to turn out my idea of good, not just some random idea of good. Another piece of all this is the truth that no matter what's going on, there is more to it than that. It's another open-ended statement, an affirmation, if you will, that allows us to remember that truly the greatest is yet to come. And in the gospel story, no matter how dire things were, and things got very dire there at the end, incredible things can come out of seemingly dire circumstances. There's always more to it than that. I like to say that Jesus taught a path to freedom, true freedom. Freedom with a capital F freedom, whatever that might be. Freedom from all lack and limitation. Freedom up to and including freedom from death itself, which is a very challenging concept. So we know in the gospel story, after the crucifixion is the resurrection. Right? That is the piece that I don't think the people at that time saw coming. For them, their leader, they knew that this person was going to completely revolutionize the world. I think many of them thought there would be some kind of army or like military evicting of the Romans at that time. But not only did that not happen, the worst possible thing did happen. Their leader was killed in the most painful, shameful way in that society possible. How can this be? This is by far the exact opposite of what we knew was going to happen. But lo and behold, what happens after that? Something unbelievable, unfathomable. Who could have ever imagined that? I picture the people at the time being astonished by the outcome. They're expecting this, and then this awful thing happens, and then, oh my gosh, the whole world opens up. I want to share this from 2 Corinthians, this is chapter 5, so this is the Apostle Paul. So if anyone is in Christ, they are a new creation. Right? Everything old has passed away. See, everything has become new. That was the experience. That's the experience that we have, can have, and I do have. Even from something as small as a meditation like we just did, something that you might do at home. You can go into it with a certain mindset. That's why I asked, how is it with you right now? Notice, how is it with you right now? Because when I move into a purposeful time of turning within, and it can be brief, it can be a formal kind of thing, I always come out of it different, somehow or other. You can feel the change. I can feel it in this room as we did it. And that principle that says, why I came here is not why I am here, applies to this as well. I might have a motivation for sitting down to turn within, to commune with the Spirit, if you will, to practice the presence of the Spirit. But often, the experience that I walk away from has nothing to do with why I went into that time. And this reminds me always, there is always more going on than I know. There is more possible than I can possibly know. And part of my role, part of my job, if you will, in the world as a spiritual being having a human experience is to remember, don't limit what can go on. Don't limit what can go on. I just thought of a good story. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
So I was the minister here for almost 5 years, I think. I was called to service here in a way I don't understand and stop trying to. People ask, and we're talking about in the book study, when did you decide to become a minister? I never decided. I became aware that it was to be so. I don't have any other words to describe it. And that I knew, I was very clear on what my steps were, and there are many steps, classes, and removed, and all kinds of stuff. Right? That's the same experience that I had when I was called to this community. I still remember the first time I set foot on the property. It was in February, I think, of 2017. Oh. And I had with me at that time my God dice. Remember my God dice? So these are simple wooden cubes, painted white, and on every face it says God. And I was given these by an extraordinary person at Unity of the Blue Ridge outside Asheville, which is my home church. There's a caretaker there that lives on the property, and he has this sort of elfin sparkle in his eye. Nobody knew where he came from or why he's there. And he rides a bicycle. They have about 12 acres. He rides a bicycle down the long driveway from the shed where all the lawnmowers and stuff are to where the church is. And I'm not sure exactly what all he does there, but he was there the entire time I was there. His name is James. Big, bushy beard. And and the bicycle he rides, it has colored tassels off the handles and a basket in the front. It's just the most, it's just like, but then I realized, it's perfect for him, it fits. And he came to me one day, and he was excited, and he had something in his hand. And he came to me, and he looked around almost like he didn't want anyone else to hear. I don't know why, but that's the impression I got. And he says, look what I made. And he holds these God dice. He says, and just with the most delighted manner, they're God dice. So when you roll them, guess what comes up? That's right. No matter what, if I think I'm taking a gamble, if I am focused on the Spirit, if I'm dedicated, 100% committed, if you will, to living a Spirit-led life, then everything turns up God, no matter what. And if I'm fearful and don't know what's going to happen, and I want to find out, it's a really nice dice table. Oh, look what came up. God. It's always God. I just have to remember that in my life. Now, I confess that when I came here in February 2017 to give this, to share these, I forgot them at home. I don't know if you remember that. But I held them like as if I had them in my hand, and then I confessed that I forgot them at home, which is very typical for me in the way that this mind works, and that's something I've had to get used to. But guess what? All was well anyway. Right? All is well anyway when I allow it to be so. The 14th century theologian and philosopher Meister Eckhart had this to say. I know very likely you know this. He wrote, God expects but one thing of you, and that is that you should come out of yourself insofar as you are a created being made, it's a little confusing, and let God be God in you. All that you need to do. Right? And when he says, come out of yourself, I take that to mean recognize, again, I'll say it, my own experience, that whatever's going on in my mind, that is a creation of mine, even though it doesn't feel like it. That's a creation of mine. And if I can learn, even for a moment, set that aside, or at least let it be busy over here and not right in front of my face, like it usually is, and acknowledge and experience that stillness that underpins all. That's the very center of who I am. Right? That observer, if you will. If you do this kind of mindfulness meditation enough, you recognize there is a stillness within that is never upset, never afraid, never concerned, no matter what's going on. And the mystics, all through time, have told us that is who we really are. Right? My thinking mind is a necessary vehicle so I can navigate this world. But that's not who I am. I am the stillness. The Christ consciousness, we call that here in the It's gone by many names. And then if I can just allow that to be where I live from, if I can let God be God in me and get out of my own way, stop trying to do God's job. I've heard that said. Stop trying to control all the outcomes around me and let God be God in me. Things always turn out far better than I could ever have imagined. So when I was here, a couple things went on. One thing is that the roof was leaking. Remember, we'd come in and there'd be water, and we're just like, oh, this is not, we have to do something about this. And we talked to a roofer, and the cost of the roof was going to be, I believe, $6,000. Well, I'm going to tell you, that was a lot of money to this community. We're like, oh man, $6,000, how are we going to do that? And so we just sort of took a breath, and I'm, holding a vision for a new roof and talking about that. And somebody said, I don't remember who it was, someone here might know, we should call the insurance company, Church Mutual. And I confess to you, my first thought was, what does that have to do with anything? Why would you do it? It just didn't make any sense to me. I thought, okay, fine, call the insurance company. Guess what happened? They came out, someone looked at the roof, and they wrote a check for the entire amount. We were blown away. Right? This is how things happen when we allow the Spirit to be in charge. Now, the next chapter of this story, and I will never forget the day I walked through that door and saw when it happened. The roofers, bless their hearts, did not realize that there's nothing between those boards that you see and the outside except maybe a piece of plywood. The whole roof is only about this thick, and they drove nails everywhere through this. I don't know if this is 100-year-old wood, dry, and we came in. It was Cynthia and Steve and I remember. And this place was littered with debris. I was just heartbroken. Unbelievable. We were picking up pieces and looking up. Oh my God, what are we going to do? So the roofer, very stand-up company, they probably spent 4 times what we paid them to try and mediate this. I mean, they really stepped up. And they got it to a point, I think they did a pretty good job with it. The last part for me, which was most difficult, is I had to stop my new habit of every time I walked in here doing this. Every time I walked in here, I would look at it, oh man, like I was stuck in the story of how terrible it is, this roof. So we moved forward from that. Another thing that was going on is these windows were literally rotting out to the point where we couldn't ignore it anymore. And so we were doing what we could. We had a guy who would come in and take one away and repair the worst parts of it and put it back, and then when they came again, another one. And we're holding a vision of this place renewed. I mean, I'm going to tell you now, given what's actually happening, our vision was fairly limited. We were going to be happy with windows that weren't falling apart, right? But look what actually happened. Did any of you see that coming? I did not see that coming. Right? But when we show up, when we're willing to lead a God-centered life, the best you can, you don't even have to do it perfect. In fact, you can do it far from perfectly and have the same outcome. When we're willing to live from that presence of the Spirit within and stay open to all possibilities, even if we realize later we weren't actually as open as we could have been, that's okay. Because, as Benita, remember Benita would say, look at God go. I learned that phrase from her. Look at God go. Look what is happening here in this place. It's astonishing. And for me to see it from the outside, just my jaw drops. Every time I see photos of what's going on, it's astonishing what is happening here. Look at God go in this community. Look at God go. In Matthew we read, let anyone with ears listen. In Mark, let anyone with ears to hear listen. And he said to them, pay attention to what you hear. I would take that advice into our meditation. Pay attention to what is transpiring within us. Without judgment, in a very, as neutral as we can be, just noticing what is happening. Right? Our prayer practice is, at its core, really a practice of noticing. You don't have to do anything. That's been the hardest part for me. You don't have to do anything. You just notice what is transpiring and let that be enough. If you keep returning to that place, to that God center within, all kinds of things come out. So the answer to this idea, let God be God in you, that sounds nice, right? There are a lot of things that sound nice to me on the spiritual path. Let go and let God. I have a bracelet that I bought from Amazon that says let go and let God, that I just wear around because I need to remember that. And if you know how to do it, please tell me. I'm just doing the best that I can with it, which is anytime I realize that I'm doing otherwise, anytime, anywhere, I just take a moment and turn within and notice. It could be a single breath, right, at a stoplight. It could be a formal, like a morning meditation practice where I get up every day and do the same thing. Whatever works for you, I say, is what you should do. Whatever the Spirit is calling you to do as your way of turning within, of remembering who you really are. Right? My minister used to say, you touch the hem of the garment. Right? You just reach out and touch the stillness, the hem of the garment, and healing happens. Seemingly, from my mind's point of view, seemingly out of nowhere. And all I can say is thank you God, for what's happening. I also say to look for healing opportunities. I won't go deep into it today, but if you know me, you've heard me many, many, many times talk about giving opportunities. Right? The universe constantly presenting us with giving opportunities. But also our healing opportunities. And it could be the same thing. They don't have to be different. A healing opportunity. So I'm on the lookout for healing opportunities. I want to live more fully from the presence of the Spirit within. How do I do that? I let God be God in me. How do I do that? I look for the opportunity to remember to turn within. Now, what do these opportunities look like? If I were giving multiple choice, it would be A, rainbows, B, unicorns, C, annoying people. It would be C. Frustrations, angers, annoyances. That's where there is a conflict in my mind between what I am observing happening and what I think should be happening. But I noticed that the universe failed to ask me how it should conduct itself. over and over and over. And I use this one example, I think I learned it from my first Unity minister. It has stuck with me. The school of life that's more powerful than anything else is driving around town. Is it not? Driving around town. And all those other folks that don't know how to drive very well, that need me to tell them what they should and shouldn't do. Because they didn't get the memo that my way of being is the one and only right way of being. And if everyone would just get in line with it, everything will be fine. But no, they're marching to the beat of their own drummer. And I realized there's nothing I can do about that. I have no control over what other people do. I only have control about what's happening within me. And so that those annoyances are a reminder, hopefully, that the problem is not that person, that situation. It's not out there at all. Right? It's within me. And yes, I may need to take steps in the world, and I am not saying that everything that happens in the world is okay with me. It's not. But I have no control over those things. So I turn within, touch that presence, inquire perhaps what is mine to do in this situation, because maybe there are actions that I can take. And I might have a vision for an action, make a call, write a letter, do something, go to a place, talk to somebody, whatever it is. Who knows? And when I follow that guidance, inevitably, an amazing, something that I didn't see coming happens. When I came here to be a guest speaker in February at Cynthia's invitation.
October of 2016.
Thank you, October of 2016. I had no idea what was going to happen. I was just doing what was right in front of me. Hey, come speak at our church. Okay. And I did. And look what happened. You never know. We stay open to possibility. I already said everything in my notes. We're talking during the book study about, because many in this room have spoken up here, not just me and Karen, but many community members. And what is that preparation process like? It can be onerous and difficult and long, and I confess that mine is embarrassingly short, because it's the only way I know how to do. And that in a way I do it exactly right, because I turn within and inquire what is mine to share. What's happening with me? I don't want to tell you something that's so far in my past that's resolved and doesn't have any life in me yet. I want to tell you the truth about what's going on with me right now. Because that's where the Spirit is. Right? You can talk about something that you did in the past, and maybe it was really difficult and you overcame it, but that's a very safe distance. And that was a long time ago. It feels safe. Talking about what's going on now doesn't quite feel so safe. So things happen, like I think, okay, I feel called, and this just takes practice. You just have to go with it. It takes practice. Okay, I feel called to share about this. Let me put together some thoughts about that. Oh, there's a Bible verse that's coming to mind. Oh, wait, I remember I heard this thing. Put it all down on paper, and so put it in order, right? Again, just moving quickly, following the Spirit. Well, I'll talk about this, and I'll talk about that. And then the downside of that is that I get up here and I think, why did I say I was going to talk about that? I skip things. I say things that aren't anywhere in my notes, a lot of the time. Now, you all don't know that, but I'm telling the truth on myself. I don't know what's going to happen when I come up here. And what's even weirder than that is when I'm driving home, I don't know everything I said. I can't remember. I'm just going to trust that I stayed reasonably in the middle of the road. I didn't cuss because I'm in church. And hopefully something that I shared was genuinely helpful to anyone. That's why I've been called to this work. We talked in the book study about following your passion. But can I make a living doing that? And so this wonderful discussion around, well, can I follow my passion, but I have to pay the bills? And so how do you reconcile these? How do you balance, might be a better word, these things? And one of the things that I do in the world that is absolutely following a passion or following the guidance of the Spirit is ministry. Nobody in their right mind would say, I think I'm going to go into ministry. At least not me in my right mind would. It is, I have to do it. And not in a negative way. I mean like I'm being forced to do it. I must share this. I have to. There's no other way forward, and I know it. And I do it with a joy. I mean, how wonderful it is to do a thing that you're so convicted about, that you know this is right. You cannot make a mistake. Right? That's a difficult one. You can't. There's no wrong way to pray, and there are no mistakes. Everything that happens is a step along the way to an evolution, to wherever it is all this is going. That's the thing. I have no idea where all this is going. Even when I was in seminary, totally resistant. All my classmates were interviewing for churches in our last year, and I'm like, I'm not going to church. No. I'm going to write a book. I've never written a book. I'm going to write a book. I'm never going to write a book either. And then I'm going to go around and talk about what's in the book, and that's what I'm going to do. Because you want to know why? Because that's what Edwin Gaines did. And she was a major influence on me. But what I came to realize that it was even better than that. It was even better than that. Because as I watched her, I'm going to talk about Edwin Gaines for a minute. Edwin Gaines is a really well-known unity prosperity teacher. She's an extraordinarily powerful presence. She is a great teacher. She could cut through the fog in my head at that time when nothing else could. And I thought, I want to do what she's doing. That was the first spark of what led me down this path. I want to do what she's doing. I don't even know what she's doing. I'm watching her do it, and I don't understand how is she doing this. It's like watching a magic show. It's like, I can see it, but I don't get this at all. And for a long time, I looked to sort of like literally sort of model how she did stuff, the things that she said. I would notice the order that she did things in. And then as I got further down that road, I realized, all that stuff doesn't matter. The particular ways that she is doing what she is doing, and these are weekend healing, spiritual growth workshops where I experienced tremendous healings over and over. It doesn't matter because what she is actually doing is creating what I now call a healing container. That's the words that helps me conceive of this. She is creating a healing container within which everyone is loved. Everything's okay. It's called, my teacher called it unconditional positive regard, which he said is psychobabble for love. Unconditional, no matter who you are, where you've been, what you've done, you are loved here. That was the message. And I thought, that's what I'm called to do. Now, I don't know if I'm doing it, but I'm very clear on what it is I'm called to do. And I get to do it my way. I don't have to do it her way because I'd be really bad at doing it her way. I can't do it her way. I can't do my message prep like so many peers that I have. And I shared earlier, I've seen speakers, like even at my church, I'll go back and watch on the Facebook and think, oh my gosh, that's like the best message I ever heard. It was just like perfectly constructed, and the way that it opened with this and then ended with the same thing, and perfect examples, and that person really, maybe they took talking lessons. I don't know what actors do. And I was just like, dang, that was really, really good. And at the same time, fully realizing, I I can't do that. It's not because I haven't tried, it's because it's so out of step with who I am as a person. And I've tried. Many times I've tried. It does not work at all. It just falls flat. Not because anything's wrong with that approach, but that's not rooted in me. That's the only issue with it. So, let's affirm together from this point forward that we will let God be God in us. And if we forget, that's okay, right? Unconditional, positive regard. That's God's love is unconditional. I'm completely convinced. Any conditions that are surrounded, we made that up. God erases lines. Humans draw lines. Right? God erases lines. So if I can just let God be God in me, and if I forget, let me find my way back, somehow or other, that right there is enough. That's enough. And that, I'm going to close with this affirmation. And that's essentially it. I'll read it and then let us say it together. It's not that long. We can do it all in one shot. I let God be God in me, and all is well. Say that. I let God be God in me, and all is well. Period, the end. Amen.